My name is Cătălin Miacea. I'm based in Sibiu, Romania, and traveling back and forth between Berlin, especially, and also Sibiu. I'm one of the founders of Agile Networks Technologies. Agile Networks Technologies is a company which was founded in 2019, focusing on customer experience. So basically, we make sure to, in order to have a good customer experience, what we are doing, we are supporting our customers with consultancy, implementation, but also integration services with main intent to improve their marketing and sales processes. In addition, as mentioned previously, I'm also the president of the board of the Sibiu IT cluster. The Sibiu IT cluster is a community of almost 30 IT companies, which are local, but also they have a national exposure. And yes, together we are developing the local community. So, for example, one of our projects this year, especially into the summer, is an IT summer school focusing on sustainability, and where we are targeting students in order to cover areas like big data, security, but also machine learning. In my free time, some addition, I'm also mentor and coach for the people who especially want to do a conversion to the IT business for the informal IT school. Now, moving a little bit through the agenda, today I will cover a few points. The first point is, in order to talk about, the focus is to talk about how to make our business sustainable, especially in the current worldwide context, but also in the same time to be prepared for the future generation of colleagues. So we will start to deep dive into the understanding of the current generations, how the workforce of the future are going to be, what generations we're going to have into the office, and we'll talk a little bit about office, and what are the main characteristics for each generation. The focus is to get what are going to be the characteristics of the future generations, but also to talk about their expectations and how concretely us in ANT, we are prepared from different perspectives in terms of tackling their expectations, but also how to prepare for what's going to come in 2030 in order to make sure that we are developing the future together. I would like to start a little bit with just a snapshot from what I found on Wikipedia in terms of the generations, and just to get an idea. So right now we are in 2023, and as we could see, currently we have 5 generations currently working, and we are talking about the baby boomers, the Generation X, Generation Y, Generation Z, but also Generation Alphas, which are coming. Moving forward, the question going to be, what are going to be the generations in the office? And I put here the office into the bracket. Why? Because as we noticed into the last 3 years, the office is right now hybrid. Everyone works either from home, either from office, either online, and this becomes something as something normal. What we see also into the Eurostat, some charts and some data, we see that into the future and the current main workforce is actually the Generation X, which is still going to be our main workforce, the millennials or Generation Y, and Generation Z, which are going to become also the future. But also something very important that we also noticed in AN, that Generation Alphas are under the corner. The next point, which I would like to deep dive more, is actually what are the generation characteristics. And I did a bit of a research on our side, gathering a little bit of a data, but also some more information to match it with how our company was formed until this moment in time. So what we see that in 2030, the workforce we're going to be formed by the Generation X, Generation Y, Generation Z, and Generation Alpha, with Generation Alpha just becoming to be at work. What I've noticed and what we also experience a lot is that there are few important characteristics depending on the generations. So, for example, the leadership style is different. The type of leader is different. The learning style is also different, but also the influencer and the advice. So, for example, when we are talking about the latest generations, what we are seeing that Generation X is focusing on coordinating, Generation Y guiding, Generation Z empowering, and also Generation Alpha, they are looking for inspiring, to be inspired. And this is the leadership style which they are currently looking. Now, in terms of the leader moves from the doer to actually the supporter, the collaborator, but also the co-creator together with the generation, with the alpha generation. In order to achieve and in order just to grow the companies, also we need to tackle and to understand a little bit what is the learning style. And the learning style, if in the beginning of the 90s was more formal and structured, right now the learning style becomes to be participative, already moved to interactive, multimodal, and I'm also doing classes and teaching colleagues online, via Zoom mainly, but also the alphas are focusing more on virtual. And here we are talking about the metaverse and what else we're going to be under the corner. Also, the generations have different influencers, and the influencers are moving from practitioners, peers, to how I was used to oscillate between myself, between peers and forums, to what the alphas right now are looking for chatbots. And I look into my kids, which right now they are just asking the chatbots a certain topic, and they got the answer. Why I wanted to talk a little bit about these generations characteristics, because this was going to be one of the topics where we should focus in order to get results moving forward. Now, what are going to be the main workforce characteristics? And workforce is still going to be generation Y and Z. As you can see, it's around 66%. And generation Y is more focusing on verbal, on listening, being the teacher, focusing on a curricula, books and paper, the doer. Where the generation Z is more on visual, learning through visualizing things, becoming the facilitator, being flexible, expecting flexibility. And flexibility is one of the topics which you're going to tackle. Being more learning centric, open book world, focusing on glass and device, and moving to what we're going to be the alphas, the co-creator. Now, what are going to be their expectations? Because yes, we are talking about the future generation, which are going to be in the office, but what are going to be the expectation? And what is noticed also in our company and also into the working with different other companies from, especially also into the Romanian market, is that flexibility is crucial. They are looking on the flexibility. They are searching for benefits and packages. They are expecting flexible working, coming one day to the office, 2 days to the office, or just one per month coming to the office. But in addition, and this is something which we experience with our colleagues, they are looking for additional vacation days. They would like to work from wherever, or even situation where we receive requests, for example, that they would like to work 10 hours per day, 10 hours per day, 4 days per week, and they would like Fridays off. Now, another point is their career development, and we'll talk about the career development because this is an important topic, because it's the career development in how they are seeing it, but also health insurance. They are putting a lot of focus on their health. The sports, everyone goes to the sport and going to the gym and participate into the volunteer programs. But in one last point, which they are very keen, is their work-life balance. Now, we talk about the expectations and what we're going to do with this expectation. And this is what we're going to do in end. So how to be prepared. There are 2 points which we are focusing on. Is the first point organizational and the second point is operational. So one of the points is out of the organizational, and this is something where we also thought a lot when we started the company. We were thinking about the people concept, and what was important is, that the company values to be linked with our personal values as founders, but the company values will need to be linked with the personal values of our colleagues. And in many situations, we are talking about the company with our colleague, with our future colleagues. the values, because they find themselves with our values, which are integrity, excellence, respect, and they are seeing that we are living the values, they join us. And this is one of the main reasons why they join us, because as we could see, is that these latest generations, they all the time are looking to make sure there is a match between what their personal values are and what the company's values are. Another point is that they are looking for accelerating their career. And this is something normal, like accelerating the career. Why? Because they are having access to a lot of information. If I'm looking to myself, I was starting to read some interesting books 5, 10 years ago, but right now they are having all these books at the end, or more, they are having podcasts at the end where they could actually learn that. So generation two things when we are talking about the focusing on the generation, especially in terms of their career, is that they would like to learn interactive. They would like to have more like we have a body, or we have some career partners which are helping them to give them a direction, both on the hard skill part, but also on the soft skills part. Another point is the Generation Z is like multimodal of forums. And what we started with our colleagues is to make sure that we are pointing them the right information. So from, joining an early stage of joining the company. So forums like, reading a little bit about McKinsey in the morning, reading a little bit about what things are happening on the Wire magazine, like Business Insiders, thinking and reading information in order to learn more. In terms of the second point, the operational, what we did is actually we did some engagement survey with the main focus to understand what matters, and we are doing this yearly. Why? Because it is important to understand what matters into the current context for our colleagues. And what matters for them was that health insurance is one of the important points. It was their expectation. Flexible working. They still seeing themselves into a hybrid type of environment, but also well-being and mental health support. Why? Because they are mixing. They want to have a good work-life balance. They are taking a look very seriously to their long-term financial future, to the day-to-day finances, also to the health of the self and loved one. Many times you are receiving, like questions. Okay, could I add my parents or my family to my health subscription, which I have with the company, and so forth. Those are some things where we should be prepared, but that's, I would say, not enough, because there are some other points where we should focus on the future and all the time thinking about what we're going to do today in order to, adapt to the future. And there are two topics here, the leadership topic, and we should be very careful understanding the generation, that the generations right now are moving more to collaboration and contribution. This is what the leadership style they are expecting, to become the co-creator, to get inspired. And in addition, they like more to be focused on honesty and transparency. Right now, when we are talking with our colleagues, we are putting down the facts, we are putting down the data, and in many situations, what is happening is they are starting to validate that information in order to accept it. But all the time we are doing this. In terms of the human, if in the past the generation were just loyal to a company, right now they are loyal, but they are loyal to their career growth, their own career growth. Why? Because they are, in order to achieve a very accelerated career growth, they are focusing on them, and they are focusing on investing into themselves, especially in terms of their career. And this is something important. So we are having customized, career development plans based on their needs and based on their targets. Another point is to understand each other objectives, to understand what are their objectives, what in essence they are coming to work. Why? Because based on that, we could create common goals. And we saw that we have colleagues under 1 year, and right now they are starting to almost lead a focus area, a department. Why? Because where we are focusing on the objectives and also looking a little bit to the company, creating those goals, you're going to be able to achieve success. And one final point is to understand that not everyone is the same. Even if, let's say, there are people which are born into the same year, people are all the time the same. And it is important to understand and to focus in understanding on each other limitations, but also strengths. Why? Because we should focus in terms of the future. Now, these are some points where we should think about, but I would like to just tackle a new one, actually the seed for 2030. And the seed is how we could co-create the future, how we could foster an environment for the alphas, for the generations which are coming after 2010, how we should adapt to that generation. And what is important is to foster an environment where we could co-create the future, where we should focusing on development of the colleagues, to help them first become managers, then become entrepreneurs, getting ownership over an area from the company and developing the area of the company, but also supporting them to become entrepreneurs, to help them to do spin-offs, to help them to co-create that future. Another point is developing employee journey, and we started to have employee journey programs based on the individual needs of the colleagues, because each one of them is different. And one final point which we see, and we also saw which we saw as important, is to make sure that for us as leaders, it is important to align our business strategy with the future of the workforce behavior. With that, I would like to just take some things to keep in mind. And because we are talking about sustainability, what we notice that is important in order to have a sustainable business, to have a sustainable environment, what is very important is to adaptation, and to be able to adapt yourself is a key thing in order to have a sustainable business. So please consider adaptation in terms of the generation, in terms of the business strategy, in order to get the right results and in order to have success. Another point is to make sure that you develop a trustful but also collaborative environment, because there is no other chance how you could co-create the future if you do not have such environment. Think that if you have happy colleagues, you have happy clients, and of course, you're going to have happy shareholders. To foster a research and development environment and research and development mindset. Why? Because only using this, fostering this, you could co-create that future. You could leave the young generations to come and to develop the future companies, the future products, and the future innovation, which they could develop for the world. And final point is to understand the behavior all the time. I don't believe that in many situations we are understanding the behavior of the market, of the context, of the country, of the generation. Why? Because only understanding their behavior, and in this situation, understanding the behavior of the future workforce, we are able to adapt ourselves. We are able to adapt our business in order to have a sustainable growth. This is my presentation. I hope that I put down some interesting thoughts to your attention, and the way how you could see and think and plan about the future. Here you have also, a QR code if you want to just scan it and connect with me. And yeah, I'm glad to participate to that. And if you have any questions, I'm willing to respond to any question which you have. Thank you.